Welcome to the show. We are here. I mean, better late than never, right? Hey, it's Vince. For anyone who's just over in the other show. I mean, we've got people. I mean, we had some cranky people in here.
Do we?
Like John said, Brian's show is over. Let's go. Let's go.
Man, I mean, it was pretty quick turnaround. I'd like to
see. Bouncing back and forth, and I've been sitting here in the chat saying, "Look, we're not starting until Vince gets here," because it's like I'm not gonna try to go for 20 minutes while I'm waiting on you, with five people sitting here watching this show with everybody else in the other show. So
that's fair.
I was willing to wait, in case you needed to hit the John or anything like that in the meantime. So
power through, baby. We're just gonna power through. We're gonna have some fun with it. And that was my first buy, sell, hold show. So it was interesting. I messed it up a couple different times. It's all good. It's all good.
All right. Well, this is a mailbag show. Yeah. So submit those questions, whatever questions that you happen. I mean, if you've got any left, or even if if you're on the buy, sell, hold show and you were throwing buy, sell, hold questions, go ahead and throw them up here. I guess it looks
Bring
like
them on.
Somebody's done that. So a little bit different. You were just telling me, Brian said that he's going to have to start the show a little bit earlier whenever you're with him, I guess. So
I would
say
have
a chance to breathe or do whatever in between.
Right. But today was day one of kind of figuring this whole summer schedule thing out. And last summer we didn't have 5 o'clock shows, but we still ran over to the 6 o'clock hour, if you remember.
Yep.
And so we're kind of changing some things up, and so we'll probably shift to 1 o'clock. But we're gonna chat about it. We've got a 2-man staff meeting tomorrow morning, so we're gonna figure it out.
Oh, okay.
I think we'll be good to go. I think we're gonna be good to go, so we don't have to adjust anything this evening.
I should probably just go ahead and mention right now. This will make people happy, I'm sure. I'm going to be on vacation next week, and Jesse is actually going to be on vacation as well. He's got things he's doing. I've got things I'm doing in a different place. So we're not going to have any 5 o'clock shows next week. No IB Nation Sports Talk next week, because Jesse and I will both be gone, and Vince is primarily going to be doing the afternoons with Brian. So we won't have to worry about conflict next week. The week after that, we'll have to make sure that we're all on the same page when it comes to who's starting what, when, and all that kind of good stuff. So I'm pretty sure USMA, I think I ran this vacation by you at some point. Pretty sure I did. You signed off on it.
Wow, we're getting the where is the dedication? Well, a lot of that would fall on these shoulders, and I'm not that good. Yeah. I'll just say it. I can't do 2 shows a day every day for 5 days. I would lose it.
That's right.
Mentally.
So Sean Kelly was the first one to submit a question.
Okay.
And again, get those mailbag questions in. Will Jaden Mickey get more snaps at corner and nickel this season with Micah Bell gone?
Well, hold on. Let's see. Let me reread this. Jaden Mickey get more snaps at corner. Is it at corner or nickel, or at corner and nickel? Because Jaden Mickey was ahead of Micah Bell in the depth chart, which is one of the reasons that Micah Bell transferred. And so I don't think it really affects Jaden Mickey at all, other than maybe now he might be the backup corner or backup nickel. And so maybe he gets some additional snaps at nickel that he may not have gotten before. But his primary responsibility is going to be as a backup corner.
He said it's an or. Will it be corner or nickel?
Okay. He's going to be a corner. I think they will play. He can play either field or boundary. And so I think he's basically the third corner. I think he comes in to spell one, and then he'd move over to the other side to spell the other. And it'll be like a 3-man rotation, more or less.
And if Benjamin Morrison isn't there in the opener or whenever because of his shoulder, you're going to see more Jaden Mickey. Definitely. It's going to be predominantly Jaden Mickey and Christian Gray as the frontline guys at corner when there's no Benjamin Morrison out there. So, yes, I think we're going to see a lot more of Jaden Mickey this year, whatever in whatever capacity it happens to be. But I think that we'll see more Jaden Mickey.
Yeah. Yep.
And you're right.
He was going to play a lot anyway, like I said. So
And yeah, like or Bell wasn't holding him back. It was just a matter of, as you said, Bell left in large part because he had Mickey in front of him.
Sorry, I'm laughing at Ryan, who has told us he's going on vacation in the middle of August because he doesn't want to blindside everyone like you just did. So I thought that was pretty funny.
Well, I didn't blindside Brian at least, so
that was great. That was pretty good.
Yeah,
touche to you, Squirrel. Like, that was pretty funny.
And I mean, I am taking my vacation in June, well before training camp starts. Well before any
this is true.
official things.
This is true. My vacation will be the last week of July, which does fall into training camp slightly.
You'll miss a little bit, right?
I'll miss that first day, but you guys will have that on lockdown. There's no pads or anything. It's just like who looks bigger, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But, I trust you. I think it'll be okay.
Next question. Will Kahanu Kia have a breakout performance this season?
No. Not well. Okay. We kind of had a similar question to this, Salty, in the last show. And I think it depends on how you frame what your opinion of breakout performance is going to be. I think Keanu Kia is going to be a breakout special teams guy. I think he's going to make plays. I think he could block a punt. I think he could scoop and score. I think he could, go down and hit a punt returner and force a fumble. Like, I think he's going to be that guy, but I don't think he's going to make his mark defensively. I think he's going to make his mark from a special team standpoint, which is no less important, by the way. But I think he could be one of the best special teams players that Notre Dame has.
Yeah, I mean, he's got Drake Bowen and Kingston Viliamuesa in front of him on the depth chart. I know he had a nice spring game. Remember, that's a split squad spring game, and you don't have true ones versus twos or twos versus threes. It's they're drafted teams, as we all know. So he had a nice game. First spring back. I mean, it's good that he was able to show that performance, but there's too much in front of him right now. And obviously you have Kaiser over there as well. So I just don't think he's going to have that many opportunities at linebacker. But like you said, I mean, this guy is a little bit older after getting back from his church mission. And I think that it makes absolute sense that you'll see a lot of him on special teams, just like you saw Drake Bowen on a lot of special teams last year.
Absolutely.
So that's where his main impact is going to be, is as a special teams guy this year, with a chance to get more next year.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
What do you think about this one? Phillip Rivers, good comp for Noah Grubbs.
He brought this up in the other chat, and I personally ignored it because I don't. I said on the other show, I have not done my research on Noah Grubbs. And so I can't really give a comp on a guy that I haven't really dove into the film on. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so I honestly don't know the answer to this. And the other hard part is he just finished his sophomore year. And so comps for me are hard in that regard to a guy that has had such a long NFL career and, those kinds of different things. I mean, the kid's probably 15 years old.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably some similarity in size. I think that Noah Grubbs feels a little bit more mobile than Phillip Rivers was. Mobile as Rivers. He was a pocket. He was a pro style, pocket type quarterback. Grubbs is at least a little bit more mobile, I think, size wise. Again, just I'm talking about just pure height, fairly similar. But like you said, Grubbs is a sophomore in high school. There's still a lot of maturity to be gained in a lot of places. So that might be a little bit of a reach at this point, just because of,
Well, our boy Ryan is in the chat, so I'm asking him for his best comp for Noah Grubbs, and because he's already disappointed in me that I haven't done the film breakdown. And okay, you're allowed to be disappointed in me.
You're a little bit off with the typing today, by the way. I noticed you were dangling. You were trying to text me earlier, and
I was struggling, man. I was struggling.
Ryan Roberts says Mason Rudolph, and I could see that a little bit more than a guy like Phillip Rivers, again, because I think of the mobility aspect. And hold it. So is he saying joking? What is he saying?
I don't know. See, now you're messing. See, Ryan,
Like,
just log in and get on the show.
All right.
At this point, all right? Jeez.
Let's just move on from that. We're off to a rousing start.
We really are. We need
today.
to just hone it back in here. Just come on.
Do you think Notre Dame's offense is going to rank higher than Ohio State's at the end of the season?
In what category? Would be my first question, because there are so many offensive categories. Are we just talking about points per game? Are we talking about yards per game? Are we talking about offensive efficiency? All of these different things. I mean, Ohio State will probably score more points than Notre Dame. Okay, maybe. Their offense is just so much different than Notre Dame's. They're going to try to throw the rock all over the place, but now you bring in Chip Kelly, and he'll want to run the ball. So how does that mesh with what Ryan Day wants to do, which is just throw the ball all over the yard? You know what I mean? And so that's the part that's hard for me, is we don't know what a Chip Kelly run Ohio State offense looks like, and especially with Will Howard at the helm, who I'm not a huge fan of. I think Notre Dame,
a lot of people are really high on him. A lot of people think that he was the guy to get, this offseason. He was the portal guy to get.
I think Notre Dame made the right decision. How about that?
If we're just talking pure points per game, I think Notre Dame will rate slightly ahead of Ohio State. I mean, they do have to play Iowa this year. They do have to play Penn State this year. They play Oregon as well, and of course they'll play Michigan at the end of the season. And let's be honest, Notre Dame's schedule looks a lot different than that.
That's true.
So I think if we're just talking scoring, I'll say yes, Notre Dame will score more points per game than Ohio State this season.
That's fair. I'll take it. I mean, Notre Dame was 7th in the country last year in scoring with Jared Parker as the offensive coordinator and a much worse wide receiver room. So take that for what it's worth.
I think Brando wants to go put down some prop bets someplace when the first game against Texas A&M comes around. He says, who scores the first touchdown for the Irish this season?
So who actually crosses the goal line? I will say Chris Mitchell.
Ooh.
On a bomb from Riley Leonard.
I'm going to say Riley Leonard.
Ooh.
I think they inch their way up the field. They get it into the red zone, and Riley Leonard uses those legs and gets it across the goal line in College Station.
I like it.
So two different props to drop there.
There you go. I think that's good. Look, you can't, like, if you're just like trying to figure it out, you can't go wrong, obviously, with Jeremiah Love. You can't go wrong with Jaden Greathouse, Jordan Faison. Like, there's a lot of options here of who could score that first touchdown, and watch, it will be none of the above. So that's what's fun about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. We've got some defensive end type stuff that Salty dropped in back to back. So let's go with this one first. Well, Josh Burnham and Boubacar Traore have more tackles for loss, hurries, and sacks than RJ Oben and Jordan Botelho.
I'm going to let you answer this one because the exact same question was asked in the last show, and I will repeat my answer at some point, but I will let you kind of handle this one first.
Right, I was writing this down.
Oh, fair enough.
Okay. I'm going to say no. I think that, we had a question yesterday. Jesse and I were talking about who's got the better chance to have the kind of the bigger performance this season, Jaden Thomas or Jordan Botelho. And now look, the bar is relatively low for Jordan Botelho. He only had 32 tackles and 4 sacks last year. He had 4.5 sacks the year before. I'm still of the thinking that even if he has modestly, say, 6 or 7 sacks, and he can be, disruptive enough to have around 10 tackles for loss, something like that. And I think that Traore is going to, at the very least, be a good complement to him. But I think RJ Oben is going to put up very similar numbers to what we saw from Javonte Jean-Baptiste last year. So when we combine that with Botelho, and again, Josh Burnham, I think that he is going to be a really good number 2 contributor behind Oben at that end. But I still think that Oben Botelho has more overall production in these in these categories that we're talking about than Burnham and Traore will.
So the way the question was asked in the last show was a buy, sell, or hold, right? And the buy, sell, hold was second string second string Burnham and Traore will have more tackles for loss, hurries, and sacks than first string Oben and Botelho. I said hold because I said I don't even know that that's what the depth chart is actually going to be when the season starts. I have my reservations about one of the guys on this list. And so I'm not even sure he's actually going to be the starter when it's all said and done. And so I held on it for that reason. Now, if we were just doing stats, I think that person, and I'm talking about Botelho, I think his stats aren't going to be fantastic. And I think he might be the weak link of the two of those guys versus Burnham and Traore. You know what I mean? And so maybe when you combine Burnham and Traore and Oben and Botelho, maybe Burnham and Traore have an opportunity to get past it, even though Oben might be the best of the 4. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That shows my lack of trust in Botelho. How about that?
Okay. So it's all about you just bottom line think that Traore is ultimately going to be a lot more productive than Botelho.
Yes.
It's all said and done.
I do.
Okay.
I do. Yeah.
And that's a reasonable route to take. I think.
He's my biggest enigma, to be perfectly honest with you, on this team, for this season. He's my biggest question mark, and who I like if we were doing like a what do they call them, confidence picks, he would be my last confidence pick. I don't have as much confidence in what he's about to do for Notre Dame in 24 as anybody else that is going to be a contributing member of this team. And, I hope he proves me wrong. I really do, because he's an athletic freak. But I don't have any confidence in the consistency at the moment. We'll see.
So let's stay with the defensive line.
Ooh.
Will Oben, Cross, and Mills combine for more than 17 sacks in the regular season?
Oh, DK called Salty Mr. Retread. And this is a retread again, but that's okay. So that's a lot of sacks. And I think that Mills and Cross will inch forward from where they were last year. And I think they'll combine for a little over 10 in that neighborhood. And I think Oben will then take up the rest. And so I think that they will have 17 or more as a trio, because I think I keep saying Will Oben. I see, because it says Will. I think RJ Oben will have a lot of benefit of one-on-ones because of Cross and Mills.
Yeah.
And I think he will take advantage of that, and he will rack up some points, some numbers.
See, but and if I'm going back to the last question with Botelho, you might not have the most confidence in him, but I do think because of just what you're talking about there, I think Botelho is going to get some of that benefit as well, and that can help him. And don't forget, it's not all about sacks and pressures with that Viper position, because of the fact that he is asked to drop into coverage. That just naturally takes away some of those things. But again, that's going back to Botelho. To stick with this one, like when I looked at that at first, Oben, Cross, Mills, more than 17 sacks.
It's a lot. It's a good number.
But like if you say, are they each going to have 5 sacks? I think that's very reasonable. Now,
sure,
Cross is still a nose guard. And if Al Washington and Al Golden deploy Jason Onye the way they talked about deploying Jason Onye in the spring, then that's going to take away from some of Howard Cross's sack opportunities, because they're essentially talking about him as, kind of like a third down specialist kind of nose guard guy, where Jason Onye replaces Howard Cross and gives them an interior pass rush specialists, essentially. And I think that that's going, so that obviously takes away from Cross's some of his sack opportunities, and it's going to give Jason Onye more sack opportunities. So I'm going to say no. I think it'll be close, but again, I'm going off what they said they were going to do in the spring and what we saw Jason Onye doing in the spring, and you saw some of it in the blue gold game. Sure. I think Onye is going to have more of those opportunities because he's going to be in there more on third down, and it's going to take away from some of Cross's chances to get those. So I'm going to say no, but I do think it's going to ultimately be pretty close for that trio right there.
Okay. I like it.
Okay. We got questions coming in left and right. I know that, neither Vince nor I are big sports bar guys, but Sean Kelly wants to know best sports bar in South Bend. I mean, you're obviously not going to go wrong with the linebacker, even though, again, like Vince and
depends
I
on the day, depends on the time. Like, but, yeah.
I would say the linebacker, Brothers is like.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a big
Could be a little sketch at times as well.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not down there like around midnight. I'm there when actual games are taking place more in the afternoon.
Right.
I would say those are up at the top, and they're right by campus, obviously, if you've never been over there. So
I would throw a vote for Between the Buns, even though I don't think it's called that. And Tap
House on
the Edge or whatever.
I feel like, I don't know.
I haven't been there as much since they changed the name, and maybe there's a reason for that. Yeah, it's just not. Then you have your chains after that. You know what I mean? Your BW3s,
I think that it is. It's Tap House on the Edge now. I think decent place to get a burger, I guess. Some wings or whatever. But like in terms of great place to watch a game, I never thought that it would just like the setup and stuff was that great. Like if I'm just going, like if I'm there on a Sunday afternoon or a Saturday afternoon just to watch games, Brothers or one of the wing places is going to be about the best place because you got it's they've all got the big screen TVs all over the place. A few more TVs than the linebacker even. So like absolutely. Pure sports bar type setting. One of the wings places or Brothers, I think, is where I would go.
The real answer is Sean's basement. That's the real answer for this question.
It used to be. I don't have a basement anymore. So.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Super chat. Thank you very much for the super chat. If Notre Dame goes to the playoffs and wins their first round game versus a top opponent, does that quell Notre Dame not winning a big bowl game in years, or must they win a New Year's Six playoff game in round 2 to shake the Sigma? So in other words, does a first round playoff win count as winning a big bowl game, or do you have to win 2 playoff games to say that you've put that in your past?
This is a great question. This is a fantastic question, Relly Q, and I appreciate it, and thank you for the super chat. For me, personally, I think they got to win the second game. They got to win the round 2 game, because the round 1 game is either you're going into, a home environment of somebody else and you win a game that you're not supposed to win, right? Okay, that's a definite possibility. But Notre Dame's done that before, right? They went to Oklahoma in 2012 against a top 10 team and won that game. They've gone to Clemson. They've done that before, okay? They haven't won a neutral site New Year's Six game. That's round 2. You've got to win that round 2 game, in my opinion, before you can get that monkey off your back.
To me, I think it matters because, again, most of the assumption is, well, Notre Dame's going to be the 5 seed, and that automatically means they're playing the 12 seed. I mean, they can be seeded anywhere. So to me, they can, if it's that situation where they're the 5 seed and they're playing a group of 5 team in the first round, no, that doesn't count. But if, let's say, they're the 8 seed playing the 9 seed, I think that's what, or whoever, like, let's say they're on the road,
they're the 8, for example. If they're the 8, they're hosting. If they're the 9, they're traveling.
Yeah, I mean, let's say they're on the road and they're playing Ole Miss in the first round. To me, that would count.
Really?
Yeah.
But they've won road games before.
Yeah, but it's a playoff game. Like,
true.
Your season rests on it, right?
Yeah.
To me, it would count in that. Like, home playoff game against an inferior opponent, no. Road playoff game against a somewhat equal opponent, which is typically what a New Year's Six bowl or those kind of bowls have been. I would say it counts in that department. Now, I think whatever the qualifications are probably going to vary person to person in terms of how they actually count it. Like you just said, you disagree with that, but I think again, you're on the road, you're playing a pretty similar opponent in the playoffs. To me, that would count. That would count as shaking that big game bowl type stigma.
I like where your head's at, even though you're wrong. No. But I think there's enough ambiguity because of the 12-team playoff where part of the fan base will be happy with that and part of it won't be. If you win both games, if you win first and second round, then the entire fan base can shut up at that point. I think that shuts everybody up.
I think so as well. Yeah. And now, just like you said, there are different qualifications for it, because
absolutely.
If you win 2 games, you've definitely shaken it.
So
there's no doubt about that.
So let's say in your scenario, let's say Notre Dame is 11-1 or 10-2 even, and they're on the road and they're the 10 seed. They're playing a 7 seed Alabama because they lost the SEC championship game, so they can't be a top 4, and they've dropped to a 7 seed. You're going to Tuscaloosa to play Alabama, and you win that game. I think we can have that discussion that you have now squashed that. You know what I mean? I think you can have that discussion. If it's a home game and somebody's coming to you, I think no matter who you play and it's a home game, that doesn't do it. It's got to be a road game. I'll say that much. It's got to be a road game.
You think it's got to be a road game or a neutral site game?
Right. Yeah.
A road game or a neutral site.
Because a neutral site game is going to be in the second round and you win that. Right. Good. But yeah, it's got to at least be a road game for me to get on board with the first round win.
See, that's what I'm saying. Because if you're on the road, it's going to be against an opponent that's seated higher than you, for one thing. And it also means that it's going to be against what we're now, I guess, going to be calling the Power 4. It's going to be against a Power 4 team, if it's a first round game. So that's why I think it meets the qualifications, regardless of what the name of the opponent happens to be, because it's the playoffs. You're on the road. There is going to be some kind of hostile environment. So I think it counts in that way. It was interesting because I saw the question that you and Brian, someone was asking about, like, what was it, about ticket allotments and stuff like that? Or
like they were worried about Notre Dame ticket holders selling their tickets to the opposition, basically.
I am really, because we haven't heard any details, but like, for example, when women's basketball, because women's basketball is a sport where you have NCAA tournament games played on home sites in those first and second rounds. The NCAA controls all the tickets in that case, because the tickets for those games cost considerably more than what a regular season Notre Dame women's basketball home game costs. So that, I think that there are still, first opportunities go to season ticket holders and those kind of things to get those tickets when you're on home site. But I will be really curious to see exactly how the tickets are allocated when it comes to college football playoff games that are going to be played on home sites. And I think to a large extent, the control is going to be out of the hands of the school, because it's going to be whatever the organization, because it's not even the NCAA that's going to be running the college
CFP.
football. It's the college football playoff.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be in their hands in terms of what ticket allotments and all that different kind of stuff looks like. So, again, like, I can't say for certain, but I don't think Notre Dame is going to have nearly as much, kind of control over who they're trying to sell the tickets to in that way compared to a regular season game. There were some others kind of along the lines. Where did they go? There were some, okay. So, on the playoff thing. Sloppy Joe is saying Notre Dame needs to win at least 2 games. That's kind of going along the lines of what Vince was saying. And DK says depends on who we play in round 1. If we're number 10 and beat number 7 on their turf. And that's kind of what I'm saying right there.
I could come around to that if depending on who it is. You know what I mean? I could, definitely come around to that. So somebody's flashing my lights. I have an awesome setup here in the office where the light switch is actually outside the door. And so I'm subject to, tomfoolery. So yeah.
Shenanigans
occurring.
Brian wants to know the odds. The SEC and Big Ten runner-up gets 5 and 6 seeds.
I mean, depends on the season, obviously, but it's definitely a possibility. Brian actually brought up a really interesting scenario that I hadn't even really thought of. If you've got like the number 1, the number 2 teams in the country, they're both conference champs, in the final rankings, right? So you got the number 1, the number 2 team are conference champs. The number 3 team is a non-conference champ. So like, let's say Georgia is number 1, Ohio State's number 2. They both won their conference. And let's say Texas is number 3, and then Notre Dame is number 4, right? Well, neither Texas nor Notre Dame can be in that final 4 or in the top 4 when it comes to the playoff seeding. So they both get dipped down.
Right.
And now Notre Dame is automatically the 6.
Right.
And Texas is the number 5. So, and then the other 2 teams leapfrog both of those.
You get an upset. Champs. Yeah. What you're saying is you get an upset in the conference championship game. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And I think that could legitimately happen. So I think the odds are actually pretty decent that potential happens, being an SEC or a Big Ten runner-up getting the 5-6. I think that's an absolute possibility.
But that's also why, to what we were talking about with the schedule earlier this week, Notre Dame needs to continue to schedule tough so that, one, if they're, say, 11-1, that there's still a really good case for them. But if they're 12-0 and they've played a top 10 type schedule, doesn't make them completely bulletproof, but it gives them a much better chance of holding on to that number 5 seed. Than if they're just playing a bunch of cream puffs, basically.
Right. No, I get that. It's going to be an 11-1 Notre Dame team. I'm very interested to see how they stack up, depending on what that 1 is and when that 1 occurred. Is it Texas A&M and then they rattle off 11 straight, or is it somewhere else where they stub their toe, closer to the end of the season? That will hold weight, right? And so comparing them to the other teams in the country and all of those different, it's going to be very interesting to see.
Well, and then, the other aspect of it is, how much do you even want the 5 seed compared to the 6 seed? Because if you're the 5 seed, you're going to have to go through the number 1 seed versus if you're the 6 seed, you go through the 2 or the 3, potentially.
I think the number 5 is going to end up playing the number 4, actually.
Well,
because it's reversed.
But it's on the same side as the number 1. Like, that's the path.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, you would have to beat the number 4.
You'd play them in the final 4.
Then you would play the number 1. Yeah.
You play them in the final 4. I got you.
Right.
Hey, man, how about we get to the final 4? But you're right. You make a good point. I would very much enjoy, though, being the 5, because you're probably going to play a group of 5 in the first round. Second round, you're probably going to play a Big 12 team that you're better than anyway in that second round game. And then once you get to the final 4, you never know what happens. You know what I mean? So it would be interesting.
Right. And this is basically, this is what I'm saying.
That's what you said. Yeah.
Yeah. The 5 plays the 12. You win that game. Then you would play the 4 who gets a bye in the first round. And then if, the 4 and 5 play, they would play the number 1 in the semifinals after that. The 2 and the 3 would be on the same side with the 6 and all that. Okay. Yeah. That's basically what I was saying. Brian is saying you need to go 12-0 to be the 5 or the 6 seed. I mean, not
to guarantee your spot. Guarantee your spot there.
To guarantee it. Yeah, exactly.
Have to. You could be 11-1 and be in that spot. It just depends on what else happened around you. I mean,
right. Because it's all still, that's exactly right. It's still relative to what everyone else does.
Correct.
Like if, do the conference championship games all go chalk? Are there ups, because again, it's when there are the upsets that Notre Dame stands the bigger chance to get dropped, like we were just talking about, out of one of those spots.
100%.
Because if you get a couple of upsets in the conference championship games, Notre Dame could theoretically get bumped all the way down to 7 or 8. Even.
Yes, as an 11-1 team.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So D. Troll Hunter.
Ryan Roberts does have a lot of crazy questions in there. So it depends on how far off the reservation you want to go.
Well, I was looking at D. Troll Hunter's questions. He says they currently do it. Are we talking about tickets or what are we talking about here? Because I was going back. He said participated in it last year. Do it in the same priority. Donors, ticket holders, alumni, then general public. Again, you haven't participated in it before because Notre Dame hasn't hosted a playoff game before. That's why we don't know exactly what it looks like.
Like, I get that that's how they do the Final Four. Like, I get that's how they do that. I have no problem with that. But, like, how do they handle a game that's on a campus site? Is it the same? Maybe. It could be. Or is it different because it's being hosted on a campus site? Like, I think that's the big question.
Okay, so we'll go through the Ryan Roberts
Here we
questions here. Notre Dame versus Michigan national championship game. Dylan is the kicker for the Wolverines, lined up for the winning kick. What do you want to happen? Ooh, man.
I mean, that's like that might be worst case scenario for my life if that occurred. Here's the answer. And I know for a fact that my son is watching right now, so I have to be careful. But no, regardless of whether he's watching or not, I would want him to hit the kick for the game winner for being a national champion. Like 100%, that's what I would want to happen.
Yeah. And I mean, your blood is thicker than water, right?
Always. Like always.
It's always like, are you going to tell me that you want your kid to be crushed and miss the game-winning field goal for a national championship?
Seriously.
Just because of, whatever, like as soon as, especially when you're talking about like that level, as soon as the blood goes to the opposite allegiance, you're just automatically going to be on that side.
The sadder part in this entire equation is that I would be sitting in the stands with Michigan gear on. Like, that's the saddest part of this whole like not happening situation.
And I mean, let's be honest, most people would pay to see that as well. Like Vince decked out in Michigan gear.
Yeah.
Got his Wolverine breakdown gear on.
And I would expect every single person in this chat to also root against my kid. I would 100% expect that and be disappointed in you if that was not the case.
Yeah. Nobody's saying that other people have to root for Dylan to do it. This is a very Vince-specific question.
Yes, it is.
But I'd be in the same boat. I'd absolutely be in the same boat if it was Jesse or, what if I had another kid that was in that. That's just,
And I remember you and I having this conversation when we were talking about, like, if Jesse was the fullback at Michigan or something like that, I'd be like, well, I guess I'm rooting for Michigan, like, because, I coach the kid. You're my good friend. Like, I would 100% root for that because, again, blood is thicker than water, and I would always do that. So it would hurt me. It would pain me to put the maize and blue on my body in any way. Like, it might sizzle a little bit when it went on the first time. But, of course, I'm going to root for my kid always.
Paris when it sizzles. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be like.
Okay, another Ryan question. Top 5 favorite comfort foods.
Oh, man. This is okay. This is going to explain a lot about my physical appearance, I'm guessing, when I get done with this one.
I would say pizza, cheeseburgers. What else am I going with? I do like a good piece of cake. Cherry pie.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Cherry pie. And then ice cream.
Okay.
That would be mine.
Fettuccine Alfredo is like my... Man, that makes me weak in the knees.
I used to love that stuff when I had no real concept of calories. And then
That's what I said.
When you find out that you're inhaling, like
Yes.
800 calories in one, forkful of fettuccine Alfredo.
Man.
Oh man.
I told you.
It's like, this stuff is so good. Why did mom never make this?
Yeah.
Oh, butter
Right.
and cheese. Okay.
Yeah.
And pasta.
100%. But I'm with you on the pizza and the cheeseburgers. No doubt about that. I love a good ice cream with some sort of something in it.
Crushed up like a Reese's Blizzard or something like that. Or
I gotta have some texture in my ice cream. I can't just go straight like vanilla, excuse me, or something along those lines. Like it's got to have some texture, some chewy to it, like a Moose Tracks or, something like that. So a good ice cream. And then I'll say like a warm chocolate chip cookie, like right out of the oven.
That's good.
Kind of melts in your mouth. Like that would be a comfort food for me.
I like that. That. All right. Last Ryan question. They make a movie based on your life. Who plays your co-host in said movie?
See, I think he's trying to get us to fight with each other. I think at the end of the day, somebody said for me, Bobby Bacala. Do you know who that is?
No clue. Never heard of that.
Have you ever watched Blue Bloods?
No.
Okay, well, that's not going to help you any.
I mean, I know that one of the Donnie Wahlberg and Tom Selleck were in Blue Bloods. Other than that, I couldn't tell you anybody.
Fair enough. So that's going to bounce right off of you. It's insulting. I'll just say that it's insulting. Okay. I don't appreciate it. He's just like this big Italian guy, kind of like one of those kind of guys. It's like, oh man, and he's like 300 pounds.
Oh,
and
wow.
I just got done talking about what I was eating. For you, though, we're supposed to pick yours.
Oh, so I'm picking who's going to be you,
yes.
and you're picking who's going to be me.
Because it says you're co-host, so I'm picking you, right?
Okay.
And so for me, and I'm going to be flattering here because I like you. So yesterday, my son and I, we were at a camp, and we have kind of a tradition. I hook up the iPad, we watch a movie or a documentary or something in the car. We were watching Moneyball.
Okay.
Brad Pitt.
Nice. I can get behind that.
I figured you might.
You
might. Yep. I could see it. I could see it.
For you, I like that. Thank you very much, by the way. For you, I'm not going to go Leo because the first thing, once you said Brad Pitt, Moneyball is where you went to. But I thought of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood because they were in that together. I would go with... I'm just going to go with it because he was the first one who came to mind. I think facially, hair-wise, you're fairly similar. He's a little bit bigger overall, but I'll go Ben Affleck for you.
Okay. I can get on board with that. Yeah.
Because Affleck was the first one who came to mind, and then I'm like, is he more Matt Damon, from personality? But I'll just go Affleck. I'll go Affleck.
I like that.
For you.
I like Matt. You know what? I'm cool with that because he's been on, really successful stuff, and he's been in some flops as well. He's not perfect. I'll take it. And I think he has an underrated sense of humor on film. So I will say I appreciate his sense of humor.
I would agree with that.
The Dunkin' Donuts commercial for the Super Bowl was
pretty funny.
Hilarious. It was really, really good.
A lot of self-deprecation there. And
yes.
The whole thing.
Yes.
USMA 87 is giving you Vince Vaughn. That's not a bad one either.
I will take that one and run with it as well. I love his sense of humor. So, and I would also love to be 6'5", which is what he is.
Wow. I
really
don't really appreciate this slot.
Yeah.
Saying that I look like Kruger from Seinfeld. That's
and Kruger's a moron too, which doesn't help. Come on.
I guess you could say I look like Costanza, but
no
glasses and balding and the whole thing. And my family's always, called me Costanza.
Have they really?
Ever? Oh, yes.
Oh,
because
of
my, I mean, you know me off the air, like.
It's funny. I mean, I'm laughing because it's funny, but yeah, I don't see it. It's the summer of Sean. I can see saying that.
Yes. This is supposed to be the summer of Sean. Hope can move, baby.
Not the feats of strength. Oh, good stuff.
Will the great one have more receiving yards than any Ohio State receiver? And if not, will it be because Notre Dame has a more diverse offense?
The second part. I think it will be because Notre Dame has a more diverse offense. Look, I think Greathouse is going to be the number one receiver. I don't know if he'll end up with more stats, from a yardage standpoint. I think he's going to end up with more catches, but I do think they're going to diversify. They're going to diversify their offense, and Ohio State wants to throw the ball, guys. Like Notre Dame is not going to be able to keep up with Ohio State from a stat standpoint, in my opinion.
Interesting. I still think they're going to score more points, in large part because of the difference in the schedules that they play. But I don't think he'll have more yards because, like you were talking about, what's a Chip Kelly offense going to look like for Ohio State earlier? And we still kind of we have an idea of what a Mike Denbrock offense is going to look like here at Notre Dame, but we still largely have a lot of wide receivers. There's still a lot of things to sort of be sorted out, in addition to how healthy is Riley Leonard going to stay and all that different kind of stuff. But assuming he's healthy, there's going to be a lot of running by the quarterback compared to what we've seen in recent years.
So diversification of the offense is really the answer here. I mean,
I think Greathouse, as you said, I think I'm in on like him being up toward the top in terms of receptions for wide receivers, but I don't know about yardage. That's the one that I would question, I think, the most. And Salty has another receiver question. Will 3 or more Irish receivers have more than 10 touchdowns this season? I got to be a big out on that.
That's a huge out on
30 touchdowns right there.
Yeah.
So no.
My son just texted me and he said, I gave the only valid answer on the question about him with the game-winning kick. So there you go.
I mean, as if there was any doubt. So NH wants to know which of the transfer receivers will have the best year.
This is a really good question because I think the answer is either Chris Mitchell or Bo Collins.
Mm-hmm.
And so who do you think is going to have the better season? I think I'm going to take the surprising answer and go with Bo Collins. I think he's going to have the best year. I think he's got the potential. He's what they're missing. How about that? I think he's what they're missing. And so I think Bo Collins will have the better season.
You've got Bo Collins, Jaden Thomas, Deion Colsey, and Micah Gilbert all at that boundary receiver. And there's we didn't get to see any of Bo Collins.
Right.
And will they move him around? Sure. But at the same time, like Mike Brown talking about that 6 receiver rotation. So, what exactly is that going to look like? Jaden Thomas, I know he wasn't part of the question, but I guess long story short, I think Bo Collins is going to be 1 or 2 at that boundary, but I'm still a little bit more bullish on Chris Mitchell on the other side.
I think that's fair because we've actually seen him in this offense.
Yeah.
So right. I get it. I think he would be the more popular answer, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And and again, best year is a pretty broad term, but I'm saying him because I think that because of his speed, I think that he's got the best chance to sort of be the big play receiver for this offense. And that's something that's obviously been very lacking for the last several years at Notre Dame as a big play wide receiver. And I think that Chris Mitchell has got a chance, a better chance to be that guy. Maybe Bo Collins provides more consistency, but I think that Chris Mitchell definitely has the chance to be kind of the big play highlight type wide receiver for the offense.
Yep.
Indy Sailor wants to know which Notre Dame NFL rookie will have the best year.
Wow.
I'm just going to say Joe Alt.
Yeah.
I mean, he was drafted number 5 overall, and I can't see any of the other guys based on where they were drafted and what their opportunities are going to look like. I mean, Joe Alt should be out there from day one, and so that's where I'm going to go.
I think that's the right answer, but I'm going to go with a different one to be that guy, and I'm going to go Cam Hart. I think Cam Hart has a really good breakout
Love
rookie
some
season.
Cam Hart.
I do, and they play for the same team, so that's a win-win situation, right?
Yep. That's true. Okay. Nothing wrong with that one.
Oh, super chat. Whoop, whoop.
I'm going to throw this one up here first from Jacob. At any
All right.
point in any year in the college football playoff, would you rather see Notre Dame play Ohio State, LSU, or Michigan, and why? Rivalry, revenge, elite status, etc.
Well, I mean, there would be nothing sweeter than to win a national championship through Michigan. I mean, that would feel pretty stinking good. Look, I'll take a national championship no matter how it comes. Okay, I'm at that point in my life as a Notre Dame fan. There's no doubt. But if you're going to make it as sweet as possible, then I would love for some sort of a combination of this, right? Going through Michigan, I would love to do it and see Brian Kelly crying. I would love to see that in a college football playoff scenario. But then I think you also have to beat a blue blood like an Alabama or Georgia or somebody like that to just really solidify the fact that you are the national champion. You know what I mean? And so if you can get all three of those in 1 year, that would be unbelievable. But I think maybe 2 out of the 3, I think would really kind of cement that as a national championship. But I'll take it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care who they play, but I think he's saying between these 3 teams,
Right.
which would you rather see them play? I would just take Michigan because it's Michigan, old rivalry, and there's especially now there's so much bitterness, since the whole chicken dance and the whole thing going on, and obviously Michigan right now is the defending national champion. So, like, if they were to end up playing in the playoffs this year, you would beat the defending national champion in the playoff, and it would also be one of your traditional rivals. So, of the 3, I would definitely take Michigan. I would take a win over any of them because it's the playoffs, but that's the one that I would prefer. That's the one that I would put at the top of the list.
Yeah. Agreed.
The super chat. Thank you once again. What is that? Reliq? Is
Yep.
that? Okay.
Yep.
You're now in charge, but can only regulate one of these to your liking. Which do you choose? NIL, the transfer portal. What is this?
Universities.
Universities paying players directly. The playoffs, recruiting rules, or sanctions. My goodness.
That's I
a
want
lot.
all of it. Why can't I have all of it?
Yeah.
Come on, man. You're putting me in charge. I want all of it. I think out of these options, I would take the transfer portal. And I would regulate the transfer portal. But NIL is very close second. It's like 1A, 1B for me.
Yeah, see, I mean, the whole thing with NIL, with this revenue sharing, it just feels like it's still going to be there, but there's just, I don't know, like how you regulate it, I think is going to become an even bigger issue here going forward. So maybe I would take that just because it is so wide open.
It has the biggest arm, this biggest reach. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that you're throwing literally millions of dollars out there and the ability to use it, obviously, as a recruiting tool, and in a lot of cases in the most unscrupulous ways, I think.
Yeah.
So that's the one that I would want to regulate. How you regulate it is a different story, but that's the one that I would want to regulate, I think.
Yeah, the problem is, this is why this is such a good question, is every one of those things needs to be regulated, man.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to be almost completely fixed at this point. And it would be, if you were the president or whatever of college football, you got your work cut out for you, man. I'll just say that. Because you could add in there like conferences and, the super conferences and all of that stuff. Like, college football is a disaster right now, and yet we still love it. Like, that's crazy to me.
YouTube says, don't you think that it is pronounced relic? I have no clue. Like, I can barely read it with all those letters in there. So I don't know.
Sure. Why not? But we've always said Rally Q. So I don't know that we've been corrected on that. So whatever.
Yeah. That's true. He's never corrected us, right?
He just did.
What did he say?
Apparently it is Relic.
Oh, he's right. Okay.
Wow. Okay. Noted.
Man.
Noted.
He says, but he doesn't care. Okay, good. Because I probably won't remember it next time.
I'll try to remember because Relic has been a poster for a long time and a good one. And so I apologize for not getting your name right, man.
Sean Kelly wants to know if I will be making any post-game show appearances this season.
Oh.
Typically doesn't happen because I have I have post-game. I go to Marcus Freeman's press conferences when it's a home game. I cover it, right. And then I have to start writing stuff and all that. So I'm doing beat writer type stuff during the post-game show. As Brian says, he does the post-game show because he's paying somebody else to do all that other stuff. And I am the person he's paying to do all that other stuff. So that's why you don't see me on the post-game show.
This is true.
Like when I'm driving home from the stadium and you guys are still going late at night or whenever it happens to be, I'm listening / watching when I'm driving
Appreciate
home.
that.
But absolutely. And then the next day I'll pop in the podcast. But
right.
Odds are very slim that you will see me on the post-game shows. Salty wants to know, will Carr start the season ahead of Minchie on the depth chart and finish ahead of Angeli?
This is a really good question. I believe he should start ahead of both of them at the beginning of the season. So that's what I'll say. But I don't get to make that decision. And I don't know. I mean, based on what we saw in the spring, there already should have been a shakeup on the depth chart. And I don't think that there has been officially. So what does that look like going into the fall? What does that look like going into August 31st? Is anybody's guess. I think if things still are trending the way that they're trending in my eyes and what I've seen, it should be, Leonard, Carr, Minchie, and Jelly.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't completely disagree with that. But again, based on what we saw all spring long, I don't know that that's the way they're going to go.
Right.
We'll be curious what the reps look like once fall training camp starts, though. And I think that we'll get a much better idea. Look, most of us didn't expect all four quarterbacks to stay. I don't know that the staff expected all four to stay because, as Marcus Freeman has said, you bring in somebody, you expect some transfers, but they're all here and they can't all get quality reps, especially, they can get a decent amount of reps during training camp, but once training camp is over, like what those reps look like, whoever number 2 is obviously going to be getting more reps than 3 and 4. And I don't think that any of us think that CJ Carr is not the future of the program.
Absolutely correct.
But I'm going to say, like he's saying, will Carr start the season?
Yeah, that's the hard part.
As of right now, I've just got to say no.
Yeah. You're probably right. I think they're either kidding themselves or they're just not wanting to say it out loud.
Yeah. Matt is throwing around a lot of angst in regards to Deuce right now. Are there new rumors with Deuce, or is this all the old, some dude down there in Mississippi is cristoballing him, and like
Tom Loy has decided to jump into the mix.
Has he flipped his crystal ball? He's saying Deuce to Ole Miss now?
I don't know all the details. I just know he apparently has been talking about Deuce and whatever. Like, I don't know. It'll be – I haven't seen what Tom Loy has actually said, but apparently he has dipped his toe into the Deuce to Ole Miss.
Look, I mean, he covers recruiting, so I'm not going to – I can't say one way or another. I just feel like everything that we've seen and heard from Deuce, like you should be feeling pretty strong about it. But, I mean –
yeah, exactly. Yes.
Brent wants to know basically if any of us are going to be visiting California for USC. I will most likely be on a Notre Dame women's basketball trip that weekend. So,
no, I will not be going to California unless something drastically changes between now and that trip.
Yeah. And we will leave it at that. Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
Let's go. Rapid fire time.
All right. So, ESPN's FPI gives Notre Dame the best chance of any team in the country to go undefeated this season. So, which do you think is more likely to happen? The Irish go 12-0 or they go 10-2?
I predict that they're going to go 11-1. And so
not an option.
I know. But I think I have a hard time finding the second loss. And so I will say they have a better chance of going 12-0 than 11-1.
You know, we were talking about schedule and strength and all that different stuff earlier this week, and someone pointed out you guys are vastly underestimating Florida State. And I don't think we're underestimating Florida State. Excuse me. I think when you look at Notre Dame's schedule, there's no question that the two toughest games on the schedule should be Texas A&M to open the season and Florida State at home. What is that? The first weekend of November. Like, without a doubt, like, those are the two games that most people are pointing to. And then you've got Louisville after that. That's largely based on what happened last year. We still don't know exactly what Louisville is going to look like this year, but I agree. I don't see multiple losses for this team unless, there's just some great regression in the growth that we've seen from Marcus Freeman, sort of as the CEO of this program over the last couple of years. I think that that's in the back of people's mind that maybe they're going to lose a game that they shouldn't lose based on the first couple of years. But I'm like you. I don't see two losses this year either. I could see one of those two games. I think it's more likely the Florida State than it is Texas A&M. I still feel really good about Texas A&M because of Notre Dame is going to have the vastly better quarterback that day, and there's going to be just a ton of experience, and I think that they're going to have the better defense on the field that day as well. So I don't see two losses. So I would agree with what you're saying. I think that it's much more likely that they end up 12-0 than 10-2.
Yep. That'd be great. That would be great.
Yes, it would. Wouldn't it? So there is some debate on the Irish Breakdown Champions Lounge this week about this question. This is kind of a parsed down question. There were other options, but I think it comes down to these two. Which is the better Notre Dame run play? Historically, Kyron Williams in 2021 against North Carolina or Reggie Brooks in 1992 against Michigan?
I meant to look this up so I could remind myself of what the Reggie Brooks run looked like.
Basically, he is bouncing off five different guys like a pinball.
Okay.
And then he bounces off two Wolverine players right before the goal line. And then he falls face first into the end zone, essentially knocked himself out, bouncing off Wolverine.
He blacked out. I remember
getting to the end zone. Right.
I remember him talking about that. He blacked out.
Yes.
I will say his. I will say Reggie Brooks versus Michigan for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's Michigan. Okay. And number two, I just think that it meant more at the time. Look, that's to take nothing away from Kyron Williams and what he was able to do against North Carolina, because he basically did that play all by himself and then outran the entire defense. Like, I get that. I mean, he went the opposite way the play was even supposed to go, if I remember correctly, and was like shedding tackles in the backfield and ends up rattling off like 75 yards.
6 yards deep in the backfield where he stiff arms the North Carolina linebacker. Yes.
But anytime we can stick it to Michigan, that's what I'm going to take. So there you go.
The Kyron Williams run is, bar none, the best Notre Dame run I have seen in person. Now, that only goes back 25 years since I started watching Notre Dame games in person. So that is the best run that I have seen in person. And again, I watched both of them today.
Okay.
And you're right. Williams goes to his right. He sheds basically a tackle there at the line of scrimmage, bounces back, the other way, 6 yards deep in the backfield, throws the stiff arm off,
Right.
or throws the stiff arm out, and then hits the sideline, and then bolts down the sideline the rest of the way. Got a beautiful block from Michael Mayer. You might remember down the sideline. And I remember at the time talking about it afterwards. I like for the Game of Thrones fans out there, I compared Michael Mayer to a dragon. It's like Kyron Williams is coming down the sideline, and it's like, boom, I got a dragon in front of me. And the dragon is Michael Mayer, and he's flame torching, the North Carolina defense. Get out of the way. And then there goes Kyron Williams down the sideline the rest of the way. But I mean, he only broke 2 tackles. And then, like, reminding myself, going back and watching the Reggie Brooks play, it's like, it's just amazing, because it's like he goes this way and it's like boom, and then he almost goes down and he breaks this tackle, he breaks this. He's literally, just bouncing off defenders. 5 different tackles he broke, sheer effort, to get to the end zone, and then he literally knocks himself out, falling face first into the end zone. So I've got to go with the Reggie Brooks run. Beautiful. Both of them beautiful in their own right. But I've got to go with the Reggie Brooks run just for the sheer determination that he had and all the tackles that he broke to get there.
Absolutely.
So Ryan is the avatar for Tommy now, apparently. Did you guys get to my other questions? Are you going to read my questions?
We read a bunch of them. I don't know if we got them all. We read a bunch of them.
We read at least 3, if not 4.
It was a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if there were other ones earlier that we missed. Were there cookie questions or something like that as well? I don't know. Yeah, I would also say, just like to this run thing, honorable mention, Tony Rice, 1988 against USC, the run down the sideline. I don't know if you like awesome. That is one, because I remember watching that one live. Literally, buddy of mine and I in the Army were like holed up in our room. We finished off a few beverages that day.
Let's just say
I remember, but I do remember vividly this run, in that Southern California sunshine, Tony Rice with that golden helmet going down the sideline for Notre Dame against the Trojans. Another beautiful run. Fill in the blank. It's blank that in my interview with Notre Dame All-American point guard Hannah Hidalgo yesterday, she told me she never talked to UConn head coach Gino Auriemma during her recruiting process.
I mean, is Gino not recruiting good players anymore? Or like that blows my mind, because she was one of the best recruits out there. I mean, one of the best recruits out there. How do you not make contact with her? Like, that makes no sense to me whatsoever. That's befuddling.
It shocked me, and I felt like, okay, I probably, should have followed up a little bit more, but I also, because, she's a college player and I didn't kind of want to, put her on the spot and turn it, you know what I mean? Like, turn it into this thing. But Caitlin Clark has said she never talked to Gino during her recruiting process. Hannah Hidalgo never talked to Gino during her recruiting. I mean, these are literally 2 of the best players in the country over the last, 5 years in women's college basketball.
Gino's getting lazy on us, Sean. That's what's happening. He's getting lazy, or he is not very good at, identifying wonderfully transcendent players. How about that?
National championship drought is growing longer.
It will continue to grow longer too, as long as
much to the love of the rest of the country
keeps doing what she's doing.
That's right. That's right. So I found it pretty curious. I thought it was very odd. I was, I asked her that, and I was kind of expecting to hear some sort of, Gino story. Like, nope, never talked to him.
Wow.
Very curious. Again, especially when you combine it with the fact that Caitlin Clark never did either. So, I don't know.
Crazy.
So Fox NFL analyst Greg Olson says NFL announcers would have an easier time calling NBA games than vice versa because of the pace of basketball and the accessibility of the sport. He did an interview with Pardon My Take, and Olson said the constant stop and start of football forces broadcasters to fill more airtime and have something real to say before and after every play. Whereas in basketball, he says, it's just as complex as sport, but he faked their way through the small pockets in a basketball broadcast more easily. So, Vince, you have called both with me. Now, granted, radio versus TV, so there is at least, slight
There's
difference
correlation,
there.
though.
But do you buy or sell Olson's take on this?
So I know this is going to shock you, but I've got two answers. So I've got an answer for a color analyst, and I've got an answer as a play-by-play analyst or
Okay.
play-by-play person.
Well, I mean, he's predominantly talking as an analyst, I think, but you can give your answer to both still.
So if he's talking about as a color person, I 1,000% agree with him. I agree completely that it's easier to do color for basketball than it is for football. Because I think number one, I think football is more intricate of a sport. I think you have to explain X's and O's a little bit better. I think you have to have a better understanding of the game in order to call it well for football than you do for basketball. Basketball, if you have a knowledge of basketball, you can be a color guy for basketball pretty easily. I think more research has to be done when you're doing a football game. I think there are more stoppages, and where you do need to have them back and forth in football. It's even harder in baseball, but we're talking about football and basketball. I think he's absolutely right in that regard. The play-by-play side of things, I think it's easier to be a play-by-play person for football than it is for basketball. I think basketball's so much harder because I think you have to know more players on a basketball roster because the ball is going to all five players at one point or another, and there's subs, and there's this, and there's that. You don't have to know quite as much about a team to call a football game. Now, the more knowledge you have, the better off you are from a play-by-play standpoint. I'm not talking about the banter. I'm talking about the actual calling of a play. I think you can call a football play easier than calling basketball because it's not start-stop. It's continuous back and forth, and you have to find places to bring your color guy in, which is a little bit more difficult to do as well.
I think especially when it comes to TV, that basketball is easier because of the fact that you have the picture, and especially like when you're talking about the analyst play-by-play back, like kind of what Olson is saying, it is easier in basketball because since you do have the picture, to back you up, you can essentially just keep talking about whatever. You don't necessarily have to be on point with the play. So I do think that football is harder because it is much more regimented, kind of what he's talking about. Like you and I, obviously know this, and there are analysts who have had not named Vince, who have kind of, annoyed me at times because it's like literally, okay, football, regardless of if it's TV or radio, when the play starts, the play-by-play announcer calls the play stops, analyst jumps in. Analysts now, you've got until they break the, if there's a huddle, you've got until they get to the line of scrimmage to get in your stuff, spit your game, and then get out. And it's the play-by-plays job again. You can't keep going past, up to and after the snap of the football. It's definitely 100%. More regimented. And for that, I think that it is a little bit more challenging just because basketball is more free-flowing. Now, I still think that regardless of what sport it is, the main job of the analyst is to just make sure you know your stuff, regardless of what sport it happens to be. You have to know, the rule, you have to be, talk about, if it's basketball, is it a pick? And, like they talk about pocket pat, all this different stuff. You have to know it. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You can't go in without knowledge. It's so obvious when especially, I listen to a lot of high school and stuff like that. It's so obvious when people have no idea what they're talking about.
Right.
And it's just, I end up yelling at the TV and or radio or something like that. It's super frustrating when somebody's not prepared, to be perfectly honest with you. And a lot more preparation goes into it than people think. I will say that much.
Correct. I can back you up with that. Fill in the blank. The NFL is going to the XFL kickoff rule this season. And the fact that Baltimore Ravens kicker Justin Tucker says he's tried to bulk up because he says kickers are involved in around 25% of the tackles with this XFL kickoff rule is blank.
A very interesting stat. And, the funny thing is, usually when you send questions to me, it's the first time I'm hearing about things. Somebody sent me that article.
Really?
The strength and conditioning coach at Penn High School, where my son goes, sent me that article. And he's like, Dylan better get ready to roll this year. And, it's funny because he wants to tackle people. But then, obviously high school isn't doing this type of new system or whatever, but I love the fact, look, he's the best kicker in the NFL, arguably, maybe not arguably, in the history of the NFL, and he's going out there bulking up, willing to make tackles, man. Like, I dig that. I think that's fantastic, whereas a lot of other people are just going to be shying away from it and trying not to be a part of it. I think that's knowing your game, number one, and understanding how the changes of the game are going to affect you, and then having a plan. I think that's awesome.
Well, and the fact that Justin Tucker has always come off as one of the, smarter.
He's very intelligent.
Very cerebral, especially for a kicker type guy. And so the fact that he has studied something like this and he's putting a percentage on it, even if he's fudging by 5%, 20% is still
that's a lot,
quite a bit. That's one out of every 5 kickoffs,
yes,
that you're kicking out there. So, one, I think it's very wise of him to try to be adding a little bit extra muscle. 2, I think I would just be muscling up and not even messing around. Just get it into the end zone. Just get the ball into the end zone. 3, if that's the case, if that's the number, I would almost just send my punter out there on the field or have,
somebody
another kicker who's
tackling.
not the field goal guy. Like, do you want an offensive weapon like Justin Tucker potentially risking injury?
Sure.
Because that's probably at least a couple times per game that he's potentially, putting his body at risk out there. I would want him avoiding that contact if at all possible.
I don't want to minimize what kickers do. Obviously, I'm the father of a kicker, and kicking the ball far like that is not an easy task. But if you could find a position player, specifically a defensive position player, that can just boot the ball into the end zone or boot it far enough, and now you've literally got a tackler, on the field, as opposed to having your kicker on the field. And you said punter, which I totally get because they're used to maybe making more plays than a kicker. But like, if you can, there have been times where, the kicker gets hurt and they have a safety out there kicking or a wide receiver or something like that. Like, find somebody that can just boot the ball 45 yards down the field or whatever, and then now you've got an extra tackler on the field too. I think there's some truth to that potential as well.
That's true. That's very true. Going back to the play-by-play, Father David says from a play-by-play standpoint, he thinks baseball would be the easiest, I would think, but it is the most challenging to keep people engaged. Seems like you have to be more of a storyteller. The storyteller part is true. Easiest, yes. I would say no, because it is so much, it's so less regimented, especially than football, and even to an extent from basketball, because of the fact that there is so much, just air to fill, especially in a radio broadcast. You do have to be a good storyteller, but to me, pacing is the biggest thing in baseball. Like that's, like when you listen to baseball guys, most of the guys that you're going to see in here on TV, they're obviously at a much higher point, but it's the pacing, I think, that really helps to, that really distinguishes a baseball play-by-play guy, because like I've listened to so many different people over the years, and they're like, especially ones like guys who call college baseball, for example, on ESPN. You're going to get a lot different degrees of experience and what actually sounds good. I think at that level, that's probably like there are too many guys who want to like spit information at you like a machine gun, or, like empty their notebook on the first at bat of a game. It's like learning how, to sort of parse your information and spread it out over the course of the broadcast. I think, like those are the most important things, I think, from a baseball standpoint.
Baseball is hard. I will say that, because you have to have that requires the absolute most preparation.
Yes.
And this is me witnessing you do baseball for so long, and like the binders that you would have of information, not only in the binder, but then also on your scorecard and all of these different things. And like,
right.
I'll never forget, like you would mention a fun fact about a player and then just cross that one off. Okay, can't go back to that one today.
I've used that. Yep, that's right.
And then you've got, all the rest of your bullet points that you can get to at some point in the game. And you don't want to, use everything you've got early, because then you've got nothing for later. You know what I mean? And so
exactly.
The pacing is super important when it comes to baseball, but there's so much downtime. Not only, and you used to do so many games solo, which is super hard to do, in my opinion. Like, it was so much. I can see why, like back when I felt like I was a kid, when you would have me come do games with you, it's just so you have somebody else to talk to. Like, it wasn't because I was any good at it. It was like, hey, at least you've got another person that you can bounce some stuff off of,
right?
As opposed to just doing it solo. And I see that now, but I mean, I can't even imagine doing it.
And it's funny about the storytelling thing. And obviously over time, that's just something that you develop over time. Sure. One, the ability to do it, and two, the stories that you get. But, like
that's true too.
I would hear from girlfriends of players and, parents of players are like, oh, Sean Stiers, he's always got those stories. He's always telling those stories. And it's like, that's how you get through 9 innings by yourself, or God forbid, 15 innings by yourself, or 16 innings by yourself. Right. You better have something other than just a couple of stats out there. You gotta have like you said, man, you gotta and that's really, I think, the sport where, you probably at best most of the time use 60 or 65% of the stuff that you end up prepping for,
which is
just because
great.
Yeah. And if you're lucky, then you've got it to use the next day.
Exactly.
Basically.
Exactly.
So Joey Chestnut's not going to be allowed to participate in the 4th of July Nathan's famous hot dog eating contest because he's endorsing a different hot dog brand. It's actually a plant-based hot dog made by Impossible Foods, which is a competitor to Nathan's, which, of course, puts on the hot dog contest. So will the exclusion of the 8-time reigning hot dog eating Nathan's champion make you more likely or less likely to watch next month's contest?
I will say more likely, because I want to see who's going to step up and take that title. Because if Joey Chestnut was involved, not only does he win, but he wins like going away. Like it's not even close. And so who's going to win? I think that's even more intriguing than watching Joey Chestnut do what he does. And I can safely say I would say on average, I probably watch it once every 3 years or so. I believe last year, of all places, I think we were in a restaurant on vacation, and it was on TV in the restaurant. And so I was watching it happen. And of course, my wife was grossed out and, things like that. But I was watching it. And honestly, the best part about the hot dog eating contest is the announcer. Have you ever heard him, like the live announcer?
Oh, yeah. The guy and he's the guy, I think, who's he's actually the main guy in charge of that, I think.
Okay. Like he's
the guy
hilarious.
with the straw hat and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Introductions.
Yes. He's hilarious. I love listening to him do his thing. But I think it's going to be interesting to see who wins it. Who's number 2, basically.
Yeah, I think that I'm less likely to watch. And I mean, typically what happens on the 4th of July, it's like I forget that it's on. And so then at 5:00, they'll show a replay, or I'll just hit record and come back. And, but you'll already have heard about it by then. And it's like Chestnut is lapping the field basically when it comes to it. So, I mean, it's going to be a lot more competitive without him, but he was still the draw,
yeah, that's true.
He's really, became the main reason that I ever watched. I don't remember really him and Kobayashi. I don't really remember a whole lot of.
There's the ones I remember.
Leaders besides that.
Black Widow is usually the best female, or she has been. I don't know if she still is. And then Kobayashi, and then Joey Chestnut. Those are the only 3 I can name.
And there was that guy, Eater X. Do you remember him from a few years
Not
back?
really.
Yeah, he like painted his face and stuff like that.
Oh, nice.
But I don't, it's like I don't know that he ever actually did that well, but
These guys
it
are all
looked
have their
interesting anyway.
shtick, you know.
Yeah. Bernie wants to know favorite MLB announcers. My two favorite, John Miller. He's with the Giants now. He used to be. Remember, John Miller and Joe Morgan used to do ESPN Sunday Night Baseball. Bald guy. John Miller of the San Francisco Giants. Gary Cohen of the New York Mets. Those are my two favorite play-by-play guys by far in Major League Baseball.
Am I allowed to pick Bob Uecker? Is he still doing it?
Sure. Yeah. I think he's still around.
Come on. It's Bob. Bob Uecker. Let's go.
I do like why am I drawing a blank on his name? The Cubs radio guy. I can't think of his
yeah. Pat Hughes.
Pat Hughes. There you go.
Pat Hughes is fantastic. Pat Hughes is my favorite by far, and it's not close.
Yeah.
I love listening to Pat Hughes. Like he just has so much knowledge and so much love of the game and so much love of the Cubs. He went on not a tirade, but like a whole thing about how, the only thing he's ever wanted to say was World Series champions, Chicago Cubs. And he got that opportunity, obviously being a radio guy. And so like just a real genuine guy.
Yep. Brent wants to know if I'm aware of Kuiper and Krukow, San Francisco Giants. I am. I like John Miller better though. They're not bad. I just like John Miller better. And like if I'm doing my tiers, it's Miller and Gary Cohen. So
I like Jason Benetti. I think he's good.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
He went from the White Sox to the Tigers.
Yeah.
But he's good. I like him.
I tell you what, man, that have you ever listened to that White Sox guy that they got to replace him this year?
No, I have not.
He is so bad.
Not good, huh?
So bad. Just because he is OTT when it comes to over the top with his wheeze and literally like either cheering for or like ripping umps and all this. He is.
So
bad.
he went to the Hawk Harrelson school of announcing. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
He's fairly young. I don't. He's.
But at least Hawk played for the White Sox. I mean,
right.
Look, I am not a fan of Hawk Harrelson because of my affinity for the Cubs versus the White Sox, right? And the wheeze and all that really got annoying. But he at least played for him. I mean, he was at least part of the team as a player. So right. I can at least give that a slight pass, but it was still too much. I called everybody by their first name and that was a little too much. But
yeah,
it
just feels like this guy. I think like Schifrin is his name, maybe, or something like that. His last name. It feels like he's sucking up to ownership. Just the way he goes about broadcasting games as a first year guy. Because there's a lot more of that. Like Steve Stone, man. I don't know how Steve Stone sits in the booth with that guy. It is cringe, is what it is.
Oh, I might have to tune in here at some point.
I can't believe how bad it is. All right, Relic, thanks for another super chat. Now he's officially an IB Boards insider. First-time poster, long-time listener. Tell the others.
Nice.
Thank you very much.
Relic is in. Love it. Thanks for the super chat.
Vince, you taking any vacations this year? Troll Hunter wants to know.
Yep. We're leaving last week of July. Not for a full week. Sunday to Thursday. So I'll miss the first day of football practice, unfortunately. But my vacation was made before they put that out. So, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. Tyler Evans wants to know how we will remember Jerry West. I mean, quite honestly, I'm not old enough to remember him playing. Easy. So, I mean, I basically remember him as a longtime Lakers executive and the logo.
The logo.
Yeah.
There it is. That's how I remember Jerry West, as the logo. Yep. Because I never watched him play. So
Pepper Brooks, number 1. I love it.
Who's Pepper Brooks?
Isn't that the guy from Dodgeball?
Oh, Pepper? Yeah, you're right.
I think that's who we're talking about, right?
I didn't know his last name, I guess. Okay. Yeah, because he always just says Pepper. Okay, yeah. I like that.
Yep, that's it. All right, don't forget, tomorrow is We In, We Out Day on the show, and the place to submit your we in, we out questions is the Champions Lounge. Or, like, if you don't get them in the Champions Lounge, I guess you can just show up here and go super chat. The way you guys had some super chats at the end of your show.
We did.
tonight. So
we did.
Go super chat if that's
Super
what you want
chat
to do. All right. So that's going to do it. Appreciate you being here. A lot of good questions tonight. And we will talk to you tomorrow for the We In and We Out show. Don't forget, if you missed it yesterday, had the interview with Hannah Hidalgo, and you can find it either on our YouTube channel, Hannah Hidalgo interview, or, of course, Apple, Spotify, wherever it happens to be. You can find the Hannah Hidalgo interview there. A lot of interesting stuff with her. We obviously, talked about her great season, as well as getting ready to play with Olivia Miles and all that kind of good stuff. So we've had Olivia about a month ago. So we've got interviews with both of them that you can find up on all our different platforms right now. Hit the like button, and we'll talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.